Welcome to You Can't Break Us, the podcast sharing real stories of parental alienation and family court injustice. I'm your host, Kaylin Hawkinson. Each episode, I sit down with brave guests who open up about their personal journeys, the pain, the resilience, and the fight for justice. These stories are raw, real, and powerful because speaking out is how we break the silence and remind the world, you can't break us. Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm really honored to welcome Sarah Squires. She is founder of Get Court Ready and the Nurturing Coach. Sarah, if you could just give us a little bit about your background.
Related to what I do now is child protection, social work, family support, parent support. Then, like pretty much everyone else on this journey, you have an experience that makes you question your reality and what you thought you knew and all of those things. So I got ill. I got chronic fatigue and couldn't do social work anymore. That's a different story. But I wanted to do something to make sense of it for myself. And I'm because of who I am, it's one of those things, if I learn something, I want to share it. Like I have an insight, oh, well, it might be useful to someone else. So it literally just started out with a few YouTube videos, just kind of talking about not my experience as such, because there's children involved in their experience. I don't want to put that on social media, but it was my kind of what I'd learned. Also, I'm a big researcher, so I then had to figure out what the frigging hell was going on. So everything I learned, I just put out. And then you start having conversations with people about what they're going through and the similarities. And it just evolved to providing that one-to-one support. And then out of those conversations, there was obviously this huge family court issue that felt like, okay, something needs to be done about that. I'm not campaigning politicians or anything, but I wanted to empower people to kind of take a bit more control in their own cases. And then there's a therapy business alongside that to help them with the emotional. And that's for anyone who's been through kind of this type of abuse. So two arms, but both covering the same sorts of things.
I love that. Yeah, I love that, you used your lived experience and you wanted to do more with that, learn, kind of give education on these topics and help others through that. And I think that's really admirable. So what inspired you to create the Nurturing Coach and Get Court Ready?
So the Nurturing Coach was the first, and that was from basically here in the UK. No one was talking about it when I kind of first came out. Or certainly not, I couldn't find anyone that was speaking about it. I've since learned that there might have been a couple, but it felt like a voice was missing. And so, like I said, I just talked. I just went on YouTube and I spoke about stuff. There was no business plan. There was no like, I'm going to turn this into anything. It was just talk. And then kind of I retrained. I did my coaching qualifications and a few other qualifications, and thought, okay, I can move to just help people more, essentially just provide a space where they can offload that was a bit more relatable than an Australian accent or an American accent. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it was just different. I just wanted to provide that space.
Connects people there.
Yeah, and so that was kind of where that came from. And then when I looked at the family court issues, particularly around child arrangement issues, which obviously is a child protection social worker, that's kind of when children involved, I was really interested in looking at that and hearing people's stories about, how that was so difficult against someone with these personality types. Then I thought, okay, I'm going to shift away. I'm going to focus on delivering that, but I also want to provide that space. So I now have counsellors who provide the counselling service, and I provide the court service.
Okay.
Not legal, just to clarify. It's very much behavioural, psychological, and practical of what tactics are you going to face in this, and how do you create a strategy when you're traumatized and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's the evolution of it. Very organic, like I said. There was no plan.
No, I
It
really
just
like
grew
that.
organically.
I think that gives hope just to see someone who went into it with just the pure intention of, I want to help people. I want to find out what's going on here. I want, from my own experience, I want to learn more. And I think it's really cool that it just evolves over time. And here you are today, helping so many people. So many parents describe feeling re-traumatized by the court system. So why do you think family courts often fail to recognize narcissistic abuse or coercive control?
Let's start on an individual level. We didn't.
Yeah.
How you don't know it until you're in it. And so we're expecting a bunch of people to know what it is when we didn't. So I do think we need to give grace in that. I think, we lived it. We knew this person up close and personal, and we didn't see it until it was too late. And yet we're expecting a judge who sees this person on their very, very best behavior, and we're expecting them to just get it. So I think we need to set realistic expectations around that. However, having said that, the system is not set up for psychological abuse. It's the law is set up with the best of intentions, but it doesn't equate to a therapy service. It's not a therapeutic environment, and so it doesn't think about that. It follows the law. The law is procedural. That's it. The law is procedural. And so this isn't. This is human behavior. This is things that you think most normal people you only see in films and dramatizations. You don't think it's as common. Not, again, managing expectations. Not every case that's in front of family court involves a narcissist. But majority, all cases that involve a narcissist end up in family court. So I think we can do that math that way around. But it's just not the right environment. And I think for a lot, any reform that happens has to take these cases out of family court as much as possible. That's not to say that we can't have orders and judgments, but it just doesn't suit the trauma. It suits the personality of someone who is litigious and argumentative and will manipulate anyone and everyone. It's perfect for them, but let's face it, no one wins going into family court. They don't win. We don't win. It's not built for purpose because like I said, it's based on black and white procedural things that families aren't. No family is that simple. It's not that predictive.
Right. Yeah, that's a very good point. I mean, law is procedural, and that creates it to be very hard when every case, every family, these dynamics can be so different. There can be a lot of, obviously, when you talk about narcissists specifically, there's a lot of common behaviors or traits, but again, saying law is procedural, that makes it hard just on the family court aspect to really.
And also you're going in at the worst time. It's like asking you to run a marathon after you've just people do triathlons and stuff, but that's court is almost like that. Like you've been through the worst battle of your life, but oh no, let's just chuck you into another one with no recovery time. You're still getting fired upon. And so the place within a family breakup itself is wrong. That it's just, like I said, it's just not fit for purpose. And that's that's universal. The same problems that you're having in America, they're having in Australia, they're having in Italy, they're having in Romania. This is not a UK problem or an America problem. This is a universal problem because the law takes so long to change. And it came in with all law comes in with the best of intentions, but it comes in wanting everyone to kind of fit neatly into boxes. Yeah. And it takes out any human nature, any allowance for humanity or anything. And
Not
these
one shoe.
cases are that. At the core of it, they're about families which are messy.
Yeah.
Even
It's
the
like
best
not
families are messy.
right. It is. It's not one shoe size fits all type of thing. What are some of the most common tactics narcissistic ex-partners use during custody battles or court proceedings that you know of?
There's too many.
Yeah, simply put,
So
there's just
it
too
depends
many.
on the stage,
Mhm.
So pre separation, they're already planning. They've got their exit plan usually in place. Now, it's not that they're always thinking about ending it, but because of their attachment style, they don't trust stability. So there's always one foot out the door should you not meet their needs in some way, shape, or form. So they have to build a plan around that of how they're not going to look like they're not going to look like the aggressor in this. They're not going to look like they're the problem. So that
Mhm.
starts way before you've even thought that there's a real problem in the relationship.
Right.
The day you meet them, they've
Yeah.
already got that thought in their head. So those tactics actually lay the foundation for court because they've already been making little remarks to their friends and things about your imperfections,
Yeah.
whether that be, you might like a drink on a Saturday night. That gets whispered to their friends and maybe embellished a little bit so
Right.
that when the separation comes and they suddenly go, actually, she's got a real massive drink problem, that's why it's ended. It's not much of a leap. And
Yeah.
then they've got corroborators when they go to court. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of tactics that happen prior to the ending of a relationship that lay the foundations for what they're then going to call upon when they're in court. In
Yeah.
court itself, again, a lot depends on the stage of proceedings. So, and also the type, because narcissistic itself, again, I'm not labeling. When I use that term, it's for marketing only, let's be honest. We might be dealing with someone with a borderline personality disorder. It might be dealing with someone with antisocial. It might be dealing with someone with complex post-traumatic disorder. The actual psychological diagnosis is not what we're focused on. It's those behaviours.
Right.
And so there are differences within that because they're all going to have different elements. But all of it comes down to them not wanting to feel that they're the problem, being
Mhm.
very clear on them winning both the public battle of their reputation
Yeah.
and the private battle within the family. So whether that be turning the kids or, taking the house, taking all the finances, then the public of making sure everyone knows you're the problem, you're the reason the relationship didn't end or the relationship ended, all of that. Those are kind of the two main motivators that the kind of the what gives them the tactics. That's where it comes from, is
Yeah.
from that's the driver underneath the tactics
Yeah.
is I've got to look like I'm the victim or the
Yeah.
hero,
Right.
and I've got to protect this private stuff, like say money,
Right.
family, house, whatever it might be. So they're
Yeah.
constantly trying to make sure and twist and cherry pick and, overwhelm you. All of that is to really protect those two elements.
Yeah.
I
I
think
like
I'm massively simplifying it here,
yeah.
but
Right, right. I like that you made that point, that even prior to court, that person is on the back end can take even the most subtle things about you, and it's like they're planting that along the way, talking about you behind your back, to elaborating on the most small things. So, I mean, I think that is a good point to show that, when you do get to court, there are people kind of, I don't know, followers or people that believe that person, like, oh, they're telling the truth. Like, this has always happened when you had no idea that that's going on. So I see that a lot when people talk about their cases, it's very common. You
And
talk,
it's not designed to make you question your reality. It's happening all the way through the relationship. So actually, when you come into a court arena that is relying on you to know what that reality is, you're not the best witness at that point, because your PTSD has shut the important parts of your brain down that you need to go into a court environment. So your story is twisted. It's not, and that's what we find often at the start, and that's why I have the therapy. Is sometimes they've just got to tell their story a few times before they can make sense of it for court. But a lot of
yeah,
people don't have that window to do that. They're just bumped straight in court, and so their narrative isn't as credible because of all of these things.
right.
And that's going to be really difficult when you're traumatized and you're being bad mouthed and being gaslit by the process as much as the person. That's just such additional trauma to carry, and compounding trauma just isn't particularly helpful when the law is procedural, because when emotions are high, intelligence is low. And that's the reality for so many victims.
Yeah, it is. So you talk about helping people navigate the storm of family court with calm, clarity, and confidence. What does that look like in practice when everything feels chaotic or unfair?
Well, the first thing is the acknowledgement of that trauma and the reality of what that's going to play out like, because they're going to use that against you.
Mm-hmm.
This is psychological warfare. It's just taking place in family courts. Family court is the arena, but actually this is about unhealed trauma on their part, unhealed trauma on your part, attachment issues on both parts. So the work you can do, and the work my courses always start from here are some tools to help you manage your trauma, because you're
Yeah.
going to need that. If you're not a stable base, then you're going to get wiped.
Yeah.
Because they're going to use it. They know your weaknesses. They know how to press your buttons, and they're going
Mm-hmm.
to do that. So every time they press your button and you react from your trauma state, they're going, told you, that's exactly what I've had to put up with. That's what we're dealing with. And so that's the most important part, is create that stable base. So that's the calm bit of it. You work with your nervous system as much as you can.
Mm-hmm.
Then the next bit is that clarity around, what am I going to face? Because we don't know. You just don't know before you go into court what the hell they're going to do. You know what you've experienced, but again, your reality is a bit all over the place, because you still don't know what's truth and what's lie from what they've done to you. Did they really
Yeah.
mean when they said that? When they said they were there? With it there? You're going through all of that. What's real, what's not. So getting clarity on their behaviors, what sort of things to expect, what the process is going to be like, and the shortcomings of the process in that as well, what you can and can't do, what when to bring in other people, GALs, psych, all those kind of things.
Yeah.
So that creates some sense of clarity around it. And confidence is all of that kind of added together, is when you feel calmer and you feel you know what you're doing, then you can go in feeling more confident. So
Yeah.
that's the culmination, and that's kind of like the basis for everything, is to build that foundation of calm, clarity, and then confidence that will come
Yeah.
from that. And I think also just having something that you watch and go, oh my God, that's it. That is a confidence builder, because you think, I'm not going crazy. I'm not the problem, because they're talking about exactly what I'm going through here. And so I think the process itself is validating, which can build confidence as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I always deconstruct it. So I'm always like, okay, where do I want them to be when they finish this course? What are they feeling just before they finish? And then just before that, and then just before that, and kind of take it backwards so that you get a rough idea of the journey. So yeah.
I think my own personal opinion, again, back to the fact that you have lived experience, just my own, how I went through my own cases, looking back on, maybe while I went through one case, didn't feel like I had any support or any maybe didn't have a therapist at the time or someone who is knowledgeable on this versus during a court case when I had a therapist like the whole way through who actually had that training background, who knew what was going on. I mean, it made a world of difference because it is, it's court. They throw anything at you. The lawyer is going to do whatever they can for their client. And again, it may not make any sense to you what is going on because they will just do anything to win. And so I do love that, people like you who have lived experience can understand and have those emotions or know what the person is up against or dealing with or feeling. I do think that makes a world of difference in my opinion. How can a parent recognize when they are being psychologically manipulated through the legal process?
I think it's about being tuned in to themselves. It's about, when something's not right. Now, again, so the psychological element, it usually feels like illogical. Like even the outcomes within court, it's illogical. No one told me that outcome was possible, and yet here we are. That's signs that there's something else going on here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's looking for things that feel off in your body, like my brain feels my brain's hurting, I feel foggy. But then also, this is not logical. It's not logical that I've given all this evidence to CAFCAS or Child Welfare or whoever.
Yeah.
And they're still taking their side. That's illogical. So therefore, there's something else going on. And that's where you can spot the psychological element, because this is about emotional manipulation. When your kids come home and start parroting things that, that your ex used to say, or lies that they're now being told, or they're bringing home grenades just to blow you up, that's a sign of psychological warfare. I mean, everything. If you're dealing with someone who's this, everything is psychological warfare, because these are wounded people. And I'm not saying that, I mean, I'm at a point in my journey where I can have empathy for them, but I don't want to trigger anyone with that. I'm not giving them an excuse for their behavior. But they're very wounded people. These are people that have grown up in abusive and neglectful environments, and they're essentially little children, mentally and emotionally. And so they're doing everything that they think they can do to get their own needs met, but they're doing it in really, really unhealthy ways because they haven't been taught how to do it any differently. And so everything with them is it's that attempt to regain control so they can feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
It's that attempt to feel better about themselves by punishing you.
Mm-hmm.
These are all those core wounds of childhood just playing out. And the thing is, we go in with similar wounds. Again, I'm far enough down my own journey to know that we actually mirror each other's wounds in a lot of ways. We just present it differently. And so we have the same wounds that we think we're not good enough. We don't get heard. Our voice is important. So they play on that as well. So if those things are coming up, and if you're seeing those repeating thought patterns, these are all signs. These are things for you to have control over. You can work with a therapist who understands and can help you not only manage that, day-to-day onslaught, but also how do we long-term heal from this? And that's where you look at those underlying wounds. But it's that awareness of your own body giving you signals that, this is just not right. This is just not right. And I can't quite put my finger on it, but it's not. And the external is showing me that there's something going on that is illogical.
Do you think in court cases, I mean, I feel like it's pretty common where people do feel that like something's off, this didn't make sense, something is illogical, how could this have happened when I had evidence to show? Do you think it should be something that's mandatory where if, let's say, the case hits certain boxes, criteria, then they should put, make it mandatory that a trauma-informed therapist or someone informed with certain background is put on the case to maybe not even just the child, but even both parents and the child to do interviews and really hone down what is going on. Do you think that's something that could help the court?
I personally, my own sort of idea that I wanted to roll out way before COVID hit was around, as soon as an allegation of domestic abuse is made, it goes straight into a therapeutic model. You can have maybe some hearings that run parallel, but that's how the court looks at this. This is an emotional, psychological case, and therefore we are not equipped for that, so let's farm it out to someone who is. Because it isn't the right environment. Being judged is a core wound for so many people, and yet there you are, you're thrown in just as a parent, just as a person. And so it's that in itself, take away anything your ex is doing, just the environment is triggering. And so anything about taking it out, I 100% agree. The problem that we've got in the UK, and I suspect that this again is an international problem, is because of the institutional nature of courts, whether that be criminal or family, it's out of date. And they are so reluctant to have change. And there's no accountability within the current system either, because judges don't have to do training. They don't have. They got that position, and that's it. That's the top of the tree. They don't really have to do a lot of work for it, other than turn up and make decisions that affect everyone's lives.
Right.
So that's always the barrier to any change and taking anything out of the court process, is that reluctance and the time it takes to make those changes. But yeah, I 100% agree that there should be a trigger point where we go. But we have cases that are in front of magistrates, and magistrates will refuse point blank to put that up to a judge, even though they're out of their depth. Magistrates are volunteers. These are not, they haven't gone through the same training as judges. And so how are they going to cope with these kind of cases? So yeah, there's a hell of a lot within the family court system, but I 100% agree that it needs to be out of that. And even if it's just for a time, I'm just going to have to.
That's okay. So you created programs like the Court Prep Toolkit and Master Your Evidence. What key principles or mindset shifts do you teach in those?
Well, the ultimate one really that overlies it is you're actually more powerful than you think, which is kind of contradictory to everything we've talked about. But I'm a great believer in human potential and empowering people, because I believe in like Brofenbrenner's system theory, where you're the center and everything ripples out from you, and so you do the work that will ripple out. So everything that I create is about empowering the individual to tap into those powers at a time when they feel the least powerful, is to kind of boost them up in small ways, such as here's some trauma toolkit, just that can help, or just providing a framework of these are the behaviors that you're gonna face. This is what the court system is going to look like. This is how to organize your evidence. That's all empowering, as well as being factual and practical help. But that underlies everything. So the mindset shift for that could have been the mindset shift is you're more powerful than you think you are. They've made you feel powerless, but the reason they made you feel powerless because they knew how powerful you really are. It didn't serve them to let you stand in your power. It served them to push you down, but they wouldn't push you down if they didn't know how powerful you were. So believe that, believe in yourself to start off with. And then, like I say, practical tools just to help you bolster that, so that you can walk into court feeling like, I know, at least I know what I'm doing. If that brings a certain level of confidence, that at least I know what to expect here.
Yeah. And even the inner work, like you're talking about, just to, be reliant on your inner self and reminding yourself your truth, your power, being empowered by people like you who are reminding them and teaching from your toolkit, because it again, a common thing that person, whether it's abuse, the narcissistic personality, whatever it is, they tear you down. They mess with your mind and make you start to question your own reality and who you are. So it's very important work that you're doing to help people through that.
I remember feeling it myself, and I hated that feeling.
Yeah.
I hated not knowing, what do I do? I remember feeling like, there's literally nothing I can do here. I'm powerless. And I was like, I can't comprehend that I'm powerless. And so that's what I want for people, is to know that even in those moments where you think they hold all the power, they don't. They
Right.
really, they're very weak individuals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so just keep your mantra is that you are powerful, because you're conscious, you're aware. They're not. Everything that they're doing is just running on autopilot. But you're not. You're recognizing, okay, some of these things that I've done, some of the ways that I've behaved, some of the thoughts that I'm having, these are things I can shift.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the difference between you and them, is they're weak, they're never going to change because they're not prepared to wake up from it. You are. And that is your power, is to take the power back and go, even if your bit is 1%, fucking, excuse my language, make that 1% the best 1% in the world. Like, be the best and just focus on that, and that will spread. That 1% will become 2, which will become 5, which will become 10. It's pretty soon. Those good feelings spread. It's contagious. But that's kind of the ultimate mindset shift throughout the whole thing, is just to help people with the tools to feel like they're not going in on their own, they're not going in unarmed, they're going in with things that are tailored for these types of cases.
Yeah. I love that, just simple saying, you are powerful. It speaks volumes. How can parents stay emotionally regulated when they're being falsely accused or provoked in court?
Again, this comes back to knowing yourself, knowing your body. So some exercises are around working with your emotions. That's somatic healing, working with your body. So emotions become scary. They become the enemy, especially when you're dealing, you maybe grew up in an environment that was the same, but you've certainly been in a relationship where they're like emotionally illiterate. They just don't understand them at all. And so you don't, because no one's taught you. So they're brand new and they're scary. So we push them away, or, we just don't deal with them properly. So making friends with your emotions, developing emotional intelligence is step one, because if you don't have that language and those tools, then they're going to ride roughshod over you, because they know what buttons to press. So get to know, what does anger show up as, and what's the very first sign within my body that I'm starting to feel angry. Okay, so just noticing it will dilute it. It immediately shrinks it, because that awareness, that focus on it, shrinks it. Rather than the thoughts that go with the anger, if you follow the thoughts, your monkey mind will take you and you'll explode, or you'll shut down, or you'll cry, or whatever your trauma response is, you're gone. Just noticing. So it might be that you clench your jaw. It might be that you clench your fist. It might be that you just feel a big knot in your stomach. Whatever it is, get to know it. Let that anger come up in a very safe environment and feel it in your body. Notice, where is it showing up? What is it like? Okay, so then as soon as you can feel that, you're ahead of it. And that's what regulation is.
Mhm.
And again, this is if you're a parent, you have to learn how to regulate, because otherwise that other parent is going to they are going to make the children regulate them. That they will become the caretaker for those children, for that parent, because when they dysregulate, they're going to rely on the child. So you need to learn how to regulate yourself, because if you don't know how to regulate yourself, you don't know how to co-regulate with your children, and then your children aren't going to learn how to regulate themselves, which makes them vulnerable when the other parent is dysregulated all the time, because they're going to then be like, they're going to take your role and just walk on eggshells all the time.
Yeah.
So that thing of just learning what energy and emotion feels like in your body, where it feels heavy or tense or light or whatever it is, just get to know what it feels like. And then once you notice those signs, you can start looking at some coping mechanism, whether it's, pushing your feet flat into the floor, like under your desk. If you're at a hearing, just really push them in, so you're kind of pushing all that energy out into the earth. Stroking your arm to just calm you if you're feeling a bit, wobbly. There's lots of tools that you can do, that you could do in the courtroom, that no one will notice. It's just for you, but they will massively regulate. And why that is so important is they want to trigger you, because they want to then say to the judge, look, they're completely unstable or they're completely aggressive. And so if you learn to manage that, then they look and go, well, why aren't they reacting to me anymore? That loss of control is a huge trigger for them. So they'll try, and they'll get even weirder with the things that they come out with, because they're desperately trying to press your buttons and regain control over you. So you stay calm, and people think that they know what calm is. It's not, because that narcissists are so hyper tuned to the very micro energy changes within you, that even if you think, here I'm calm, in here, if it's going like a paddling duck, then they pick up on that, so they know they've got control. So this has to be real, that you can't fake regulation. So when you are regulated, it dysregulates them, and they try to regain control, and then they start to reveal all the things that you've been saying all along.
Yeah.
This is who they are. And then you can say, and that's what I'm worried about in front of the kids. They can't control their temper. They can't, they're this, that, and the other. This is who they are. And so you reveal it by being calm. And that's one of the most powerful things that you can do. Like I say, for your kids as well. It's
Right.
for yourself.
Yeah. And being that role model then for the kids. I also, with court cases, them throwing you off your guard, and if you're not able to be self-aware and regulate, that also brings out those high emotions that, like you're saying, they can then be like, see, I told you she's like that, or he's like that. And so if you're able to self-regulate, be self-aware of maybe, again, such small, simple things you could do in the courtroom that no one will notice, but for yourself to be aware of, that helps you through it. I think it also helps then articulate more. So if you're on the stand, if you're testifying, you're going to come out so much more clearer to a judge or to, the whoever is there. And that will help your case as well. Just reminding yourself to speak your truth and articulate that and hold true to your, what needs to be shown. Because if you're high emotions, you can disassociate your mind, it's PTSD. You could go blank and sitting there like, I don't know what to say. What was the question? What are we talking about? And that, I totally understand it. I totally get why why you feel that way. But to judge, to court, you have to be, your best behavior and know how to articulate what needs to come across to the judge. So I think these help with that.
And it activates the parts of your brain that you need, because if you are yourself dysregulated, then you're allowing the complex PTSD program to run,
Mm-hmm.
And when that runs, it shuts down all the programs that you need. So you're just coming from survival. And who makes great decisions when they're in survival mode? Unless unless you're trained, you're in the
Right.
army or anything like that, you're not going to make the best decisions in that moment, because you're making them from fear. You're making them from the very real feeling of, I'm going to die if I don't do something. And that's
Yes.
not the place that court is not looking for those reactions.
Right.
So when you are able to regulate, you are allowing your emotional regulation part of your brain and your logical processing part of your brain to come back online, so that you can recall dates. So when they say a false allegation, you can say, well, actually on that date this was happening.
Yeah.
And you can disprove it in a shot. So if you do it for you, because it will massively change your life if you learn how to regulate. Develop a healthy relationship with your emotions. It will change everything. Do it for your kids, because again, it will change their life, but it will also help them and protect them from the emotional manipulation of that parent.
Yeah.
The bonus is it helps in court massively, because credibility, and also it reveals the other person, because they will desperately be clawing back, controlling you.
And not only the testifying aspect or you speaking, but I think also it helps be in tune with remembering what has been testified. Maybe your court case goes days long, not just, a half day or a day. It could be days long. You never know. And to be able to regulate and be aware, you can kind of remember along the way. I mean, I've been in that. And so just from my own experience, day 1 versus day 3, the lawyer alone tries to trip you up as if you said something, or as if they said something that, and then day 3, like, oh, well, you said this, or I said that and you did that, and I didn't. No, I didn't. And so just even not allowing them to twist things on you.
And I was talking about this with a client before, is that a lot of people that have been through these relationships, obviously I've got chronic fatigue, a lot of people have fibromyalgia. You can't manage a 3-day. You just can't, you physically cannot manage a 3-day hearing or anything, 2-day hearing. And 1-day hearing is hard, and you probably need a week to recover from it. Anything over that, your body is working against you, because your body is going, no, we need to rest. So you get the brain fog and everything. And so being as prepared as possible is so important. So even though you are struggling with those levels of tiredness, you are struggling with all those physical problems that come from long-term exposure to stress, if you are better prepared, even if you can't remember it, you've got something in front of you that you can just go, oh no, actually, I didn't say that. So even if your memory, because, my memory and my brain go, and it hurts to think, if I'm tired. So having tools just to be able to go, be that, something just to remind you in that moment, can be just so helpful, because your body is going to work against you if because long-term stress does nasty things to your body.
Yeah. And while being just traumatized day after day like that, if it does, I mean, even just half a day, no matter how long you're in court, it is trauma. But to be almost like re-trauma day after day after day if it drags on. So it is very hard to manage that. How can professionals like lawyers, judges, therapists become more trauma informed and better equipped to identify if there's abuse or coercive control involved in these cases?
So from my experience, what I call trauma informed, trauma aware, is because I've, excuse my language, fucking done the work. I've done the work. I know what trauma looks like in my body. I know how I behave when I'm traumatized or triggered. I don't think anyone can say that they are trauma aware if they haven't done the work on themselves. And that's the problem with so many professionals in this. They don't do that work at all. So they might go on a course and they can tell you, yeah, I understand what trauma is. But just the same with narcissistic abuse, you can do a course and think you know what it is. It's not. Unless you've lived it day in, day out, you've no idea what it is. You can pull out words, but you don't know what that feels like. So for me, professionals need to do the work. It needs to become compulsory for professionals who work with abuse cases to do that work. Again, probably never going to happen. Oh, no, it will. I think in time it will. I think we are becoming far more aware of the importance of that kind of work. Probably not going to happen in the next decade.
Right.
But
Takes time.
that's what has to happen. So
Yeah.
once you've done that inner work, so you know what trauma feels like for yourself, you know where your bias sits because you've got to, yourself, you understand your own role in the drama triangle. If you don't do that work, you don't know what trauma is.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, that is the best way for people to be trauma aware.
Yeah.
Obviously, realistically, listen to clients, trust your own instincts. If someone's coming to you and you think something's not right here, something's a bit weird, trust that. Have boundaries. Jesus, the amount of professionals, particularly solicitors, actually, and CAFCAS, because I've known terrible CAFCAS, and that's our child welfare around the court, with the most appalling boundaries that I've known some that have entered into relationships with these people, that they need to learn boundaries. They need to learn emotional manipulation and all of that, because these, particularly social work and the offshoots of that, again, my background, so I know, they're of the rescuer variant. So they think that they can heal people. So they like people that present as vulnerable. They like people that present as a victim. But actually, what we know from all of these cases is who presents as the victim and who actually is the victim ain't always the same thing. And so rescuers can be really, really vulnerable to the manipulation tactics used by these people. And that can lead to them doing really stupid things and career suicide because they are so on that train. They back that person and they will die on that hill protecting that person, even when there's so much evidence.
Yeah.
So training, personal trauma work, boundaries, and then the training for me. That's my ideal world of how it would go.
And it's not that we're saying they have to have gone through the same trauma we've gone through. I even like the idea that, I appreciate any professional who is well-intentioned. They are going into this profession because they want to help. And not everyone has obviously the same lived experience. So I even just kind of like the idea that if there's people who haven't had as certain experiences or certain, situations come up in life, that they even maybe do studies, find people who have, and kind of break it down and just even have these, research studies where they do talk to people who have lived it. And I just think it helps that much more just to dive in and, find all the knowledge you can on it and become that much more educated on it.
I agree, but I think it's also the fact that you choose a profession based on your childhood wounds because you're trying to fix something. So people choose to be a judge because they felt that there was an injustice in their early childhood. People go into social work because they want to fix someone. They're a caretaker. If they do the work and recognise that how powerful is that? So they do have those experiences. Trauma doesn't have to be getting punched in the face or anything like that. Trauma is being bullied at school. Trauma is a kid laughing at you when you fell over. It's the scale of trauma is not only big things. It's little things and cumulative things and relational trauma and all of that. So every single person on this planet has got some experience of trauma. We choose the professions because we're trying to heal some of that. So encouraging people to do that work will help them to understand. It doesn't have to be narcissistic trauma, but the trauma in ourselves. If we understand why we make decisions, then that awareness will massively help with all of these cases. So yeah,
Yeah.
I don't expect everyone to have been through narcissistic abuse to become a judge or anything like that. What I want is for everyone to have done the work so that they can identify what wounds are playing, what program is running in them,
Yeah.
because that's what the narcissist is going to play with,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what
That's
makes
a
them
great,
vulnerable.
yeah, that's a great answer. That's a great explanation to that. I definitely agree with all of what you just said. If a listener is currently in the middle of a high conflict case and feels completely hopeless, what would you want them to hear right now?
You are powerful.
Oh, I
Stop
love
believing
that.
everything that they tell you. They're lying about
Mhm.
everything. But as I said before, they wouldn't need to shrink and control you if they didn't know your power.
Yeah.
You're an incredibly powerful being. You can create whatever life you want. Just you gotta believe in yourself. You gotta. So again, coming back to trauma work, which I know I bleat on about all the time, but it's just so important.
Yeah.
When you strip back yourself from all the trauma, and we never get to the bottom of it, but if we strip back as much as we can of the layers, then we start to see why we make certain decisions, and we make decisions that are truly in our best interests, not from survival, not from anger or unhealed emotion, but from deeply held self-love and compassion. And those decisions are totally different when you feel that and you believe that you are powerful.
Yeah.
And so it's life changing. It's been the best journey I've ever been on, is doing that in a work. Getting
Hmm.
to know myself, getting to understand. Doesn't mean that I don't get hacked off at stuff. Doesn't mean that, I don't have moments where I just want to bawl my eyes out. It doesn't stop things happening, but I deal with them, and
Right.
I can look at it and be so compassionate to myself in those moments.
Mhm.
And that's what doing the work really gives you, is that self-compassion, because behind the anger there's always shame. And so many people that have been in these situations, whether they know it consciously or not, there's an element of shame that they are carrying. Shame for their kids, shame for themselves, shame from their childhood. And being able to release that and just truly love yourself, and believe in yourself, that is so powerful. Again, it's the repellent to narcissists, because they don't want people that believe in themselves. They don't want
Right.
people that truly love themselves. They don't want any of that. They want the ones that do have those wounds, because we attract where we're at.
Right.
We attract trauma resonance. So doing that healing work, that's your power. It's your power to change your entire life. And you know what? 5, 10 years time, you could look back on your life and be, oh my God, I can't believe that even happened. Look how brilliant it is now. I'm living my best life, my dream life.
Hmm.
And that's possible.
Hmm.
Just believe and just, keep doing it. And I don't, I'm not trying to belittle the process. It's so hard. But I think I always talk to people about goals for family court, and people get stuck on the idea of like specifics. I want this outcome, I want that outcome. I think it's more important to have an emotional outcome. I want to feel like I did my best.
Yeah.
I want to feel like I gave a good representation of myself.
Hmm.
They are realistic and achievable goals, because
Yeah.
you're in control of them. If you set a goal that I want this amount of custody, or I want this amount in the financial, I want that, that's out of your hands.
Right.
You don't know if you're going to achieve that goal or not, because you're relying on someone else to make that decision. So set yourself goals, and that you can achieve just
Yeah.
by yourself. The things that you do are going to achieve them. So that's where your power is coming back into your bit. Again, going back 1%. If that's all that you think is in your control, then blooming heck, make that 1% the best 1% ever.
Yeah.
And then that
I,
will
yeah.
ripple out into the other 99%.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, again, lived experience, just personal opinion here. I think, in my last court case, for example, it went completely the opposite direction. It was illegal, I believe. He, illegally kept my child and it went the wrong direction, and courts did nothing about that to find out how negligent it ended up being. So it can just in a moment turn the opposite way again, down to, out of your hands. I had been working for a while with a therapist who is trained in this background that just that's such a difference compared to one who wasn't, didn't have really this background or understand either what was going on. So to come out the other end with just the worst outcome that no one saw coming. People say, how are you functioning? How are you? Of course, I have my moments. Of course, I might break down. Of course, I feel the feels. But I had already been working for a long time on, working on healing and my inner self. And so I can say firsthand that still does a world of difference, because again, it's out of your hands sometimes where it goes, and you just want to be prepared and take care of yourself through that, and it will help you just live your life, keep living.
And I think when there's children involved and when there's alienation involved, then your kids are stuck in a very, very difficult position.
Mm-hmm.
And the more healed you are always connected to your children, whether you're physically in their presence or not. Their DNA is in you and your DNA is in them. Energetically, there are cords that attach you all the time. So all the work that you do on yourself, they are getting. You are feeding them. As if, you are literally connected by a pipe. All the work you do on yourself flows through to them. So yes, feel. I'm not saying don't feel. Feel pain, feel anger, feel it, let it out. That's the emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence isn't never feeling bad. Emotional
Right.
intelligence is allowing yourself to feel bad properly and safely, not bottling it up and projecting it out into the wrong space.
Right.
It's feeling it in that moment and giving yourself grace to feel that. And so all that work that you do, you're feeding your children that. And when you start to build that inner sense of safety, your children feel that. And those are the things that will shift, because those are the things that will bring your children back to you, because they'll sense, actually, mom or dad, they're safe now. They feel safe. None of this is happening consciously, but they will sense something's changed in you. Something's different. And this place here doesn't feel safe, but something feels good there. I always describe it as like they're in a prison in a war zone. And if you're still in that war zone, they're not going to break out, because it makes no odds to them. You
Right.
need to be over there in a safe place that is rainbows and bunny rabbits, is calm. That's the only way they're going to get out of that prison and make a run for it, is if they know what they're coming to on the other side is safe and calm. So doing the work is providing that haven for them to come. And we can't put timescales on how long that will take, but just know that every bit of work you do in yourself, you are helping them.
Yeah.
And so I just think, I this is taking me on a spiritual journey as well. You can probably tell by some of my language, but the energetic connection between people remains. But even people that have passed physically, we're still connected to them energetically. So your children that are in this world, they feel and they think what you are feeling and thinking. So be conscious about that.
Yeah.
Be mindful of what you're saying. Just every night, talk to them as if they're next to you. Tell them about your day. Tell them how brilliant you are. Send them the love. Just keep the relationship going as if.
Yeah.
And pretty, like I say, you can't put timescales and things, but I'm a great believer in that is what turns these ships around.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I often say, kind of use that phrase as well, that you want to be that safe space for your child, whether that child is physically with you or not right now, or not knowing when that child will be back with you, you still need to have that safe space for when or if the child does come back around.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So how can people connect with you or learn more about your Get Court Ready and Nurturing Coach programs before we leave today?
Both have websites, so thenurturingcoach.co.uk and getcourtready.co.uk. You can use .com as well, I think, on both of them, if I remember rightly, but it is .co.uk. And yeah, they're although obviously they're written by me, an English person, and I use our English court system, they are international. We have people all over the world use both the counselling and the program, and I'm developing new tools all the time that obviously as I've learned as I've gone along as well. I'm bringing them in. So yeah, there's lots of free resources on the website for them.
That's amazing.
I am on social media, but they're the main places.
And is LinkedIn one people can just search you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn as Sarah Squires and Get Court Ready. There's Facebook pages for both Get Court Ready and the Nurturing Coach. Instagram, it's the Nurturing Coach. TikTok, it's Get Court Ready. And YouTube, it's the Nurturing Coach. YouTube is a vast library of videos that I've done over the years. Probably thousands of videos that I've done. What's the word I'm going to say? Chronicling my journey.
Yeah.
So the angry, very mad version at the start that's softened up over the years.
Well, that's nice. That's almost like a diary for you to go back and show this personal journey you've been on. I love that. I love that you also have some, resources out there for people to learn and educate themselves on this and your toolkits. And I'm excited to see where you go from here and just continue helping people. So thank you again for being here today, Sarah, and all the great work that you do.
Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening to You Can't Break Us. If this episode spoke to you, subscribe and leave a review. Every voice matters. Every story counts. If you or someone you know has a story to share, email youcan'tbreakuspodcast@gmail.com to connect with me. Until next time, stay strong, stay grounded, and never stop using your voice. Because no matter what they've tried to take from us, they can't